The ship was small, it was old, and it was very, very alone. It drifted quietly through the dark space between two star systems, a thin trail of blue light coming out of its back engines. The name on the side of the ship was painted in fading white letters. It said Silent Passage. It was not a warship. It was not a fighter. It was just a simple cargo ship, the kind that carried things from one place to another without any trouble. Nobody ever paid attention to ships like this one. They were too boring to notice. But today something was about to change that. Lyra Venn sat alone in the observation room of the Selvari warship Starwatch, her silver eyes fixed on the sensor display. It was 0300 hours, the night shift. Most of the crew was asleep. The corridors outside were silent except for the low hum of the engines, a sound so constant she barely noticed it anymore. She had been an intelligence officer for 12 years. She had watched 1,000 ships pass through these sensors, cargo vessels, patrol craft, civilian transports, all of them following the designated routes, all of them doing exactly what they were supposed to do. But this one was different. This one was flying straight into the neutral belt. Lyra leaned forward, her blue-toned fingers moving across the controls to get a clearer image. The neutral belt was the buffer zone between Selvari space and Varathi territory. It was supposed to be empty, neutral, a place where neither side went because going there meant becoming a target for both. The small shelf on her screen was heading directly into the center of it. Identification, she said quietly, pulling up the vessel's signature. The computer responded in a flat voice. Earth registry, cargo classification, vessel name, Silent Passage, pilot, Callum Reed, no weapons detected, no military authorization. A human ship. Of course it was. Lyra sat back in her chair. She should report this. Protocol demanded it. An unauthorized vessel entering the neutral belt was a potential security risk. Command would want to know, but something made her hesitate. She watched the small dot on her screen move steadily forward, alone in the dark, and she wondered what could possibly be important enough to make someone fly into a war zone with no weapons and no backup. Then the shooting started. The sensor display lit up with new contacts. Varathi warships, 3 of them, emerging from the far side of the neutral belt. They had been waiting in the shadow of a debris field, invisible until they moved. And they were moving now, straight toward the small human ship. Lyra's hand moved to the communication panel, ready to sound the alert. But before she could, more contacts appeared. Selvari ships this time, coming from her side of the belt. 5 of them. Patrol vessels that must have picked up the same readings she had. The human ship was caught directly between them. No, Lyra whispered. The Varathi opened fire first. Bright streaks of energy weapons lit up the dark space. The Selvari ships returned fire immediately. And in the middle of it all, that small cargo ship with its fading white name continued forward. Lyra pulled up a closer view. The ship was moving now, really moving, weaving between the weapons fire with a precision that should not have been possible for a civilian pilot. The ship banked left, dove down, rolled right. One of the Varathi shots clipped its rear section. The aft engine flared and went dark. The ship should have stopped, should have tried to run, but it kept going, pushing through the chaos on a single engine, moving like it had somewhere to be, and nothing was going to stop it. Lyra found herself leaning forward again, her breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" she whispered to the screen. A Kolvari weapons blast hit the cargo bay. The ship shuddered but did not break apart. Another hit. Another. The small vessel was being torn apart piece by piece, but it kept flying, kept moving forward through the fire and the dark and the impossible odds. Lyra had seen battles before. She had watched ships fight and die, but she had never seen anything like this. This was not fighting. This was something else. This was refusing to stop, refusing to turn back, refusing to accept that some things were impossible. The human ship had cleared the debris field, on the other side open space, a chance to run, and then something happened that Lyra did not expect. The ship slowed. The remaining engine powered down to minimum thrust. The vessel came to a full stop, hanging motionless in the dark. 3 Selvari patrol ships surrounded it, weapons charged, targeting locked. The human ship did not move. Lyra's hand hovered over the communication panel. She could stop this. She could tell the patrol ships to stand down, that this was clearly not a military threat, but she was just an intelligence officer on night watch. The patrol commander would not listen to her. She watched helplessly as the boarding order went out. The small human ship sat there in the dark, engines quiet, making no attempt to flee. On Lyra's screen, the ship's communication system activated. A voice came through, male, calm, speaking in accented but clear Kovari. "This is Callum Reed, pilot of the cargo ship Silent Passage. I am carrying medical supplies for Ridgeway Station. I am not armed. I am not a threat. Please do not damage my cargo hold." Lyra's eyes widened. Medical supplies. He flew through all of that for medical supplies. The patrol commander's response was curt. "Power down all systems. Prepare to be boarded. Do not resist." "Understood. I won't cause any trouble. Just please make sure the cargo bay stays sealed. There are people who need what's in there." The communication ended. Lyra sat in the quiet observation room, staring at the screen. She had witnessed a human fight alone against impossible odds. She had watched him refuse to give up, refuse to turn back, refuse to let weapons fire and explosions and certain death stop him from doing whatever it was he had set out to do. And his first words after surviving all of that were not about himself. They were about his cargo, about people who needed help. Lyra did not know why, but she felt something shift inside her chest, something warm and unexpected and dangerous. She reached for her comm unit and opened a channel to the patrol commander. "Commander, this is Intelligence Officer Venn. I have been monitoring the human vessel. I request permission to oversee the boarding process." There was a pause. Then, "Since when do intelligence officers handle boardings, Venn?" "Since this particular vessel flew through an active combat zone to deliver medical supplies. I want to know why." Another pause. "Permission granted. Report to Docking Bay 3. Lyra stood and walked out of the observation room. Behind her, the sensor display showed two ships, the small human cargo vessel and one of the Selvari patrol ships, moving together toward the Star Watch. She did not know it yet, but everything was about to change. Inside the Silent Passage, Callum Reed sat in his pilot's seat and looked at his hands. They were shaking, not from fear, from exhaustion, from adrenaline finally wearing off, from the weight of everything his body had just been through. He was 32 years old. He had short brown hair that was currently sticking up in several directions from sweat. His eyes were brown and calm, even now. He wore a gray flight suit with a patch on the arm that said Earth Cargo Division. That was all he was, a cargo pilot, someone who moved things from one place to another. He had never been in combat before. He had never flown through a battle. He had never been shot at by warships from the two different alien races who did not care that he was a civilian just trying to help people. But he had done it anyway, because someone had to. He looked at the small hologram on his console, a picture that had been sent to him 3 weeks ago. A little girl, 7 years old, with no hair and big brown eyes and a smile that broke his heart. Her name was Emma. She had leukemia. The medicine she needed was sitting in his cargo bay right now, along with supplies for 42 other children who were sick and dying on a colony that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten about. Callum did not know Emma. He had never met her. But her mother had sent him that picture and a message that said, someone has to care. So he did. The docking clamp connected to his ship with a heavy metallic clang. He felt it through his whole body. The sound of inevitability. The sound of whatever came next. He stood up slowly, his legs unsteady. He walked to the small mirror near the door and tried to straighten his hair. Gave up, smiled at his reflection. It was a tired smile, but it was genuine. Well, he said to himself, you made it this far. The door to his ship opened. 4 Kovari soldiers stepped inside. They were tall, taller than Callum by a good 6 inches. Their skin had that distinctive blue tone he had seen in photographs, but never in person. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light of his cabin. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that hummed with quiet energy. They looked at him like they were not sure what to make of him. Callum raised his hands slowly, palms out, fingers spread. Universal sign of non-aggression. He kept his face open and his voice calm. I'm not going to fight you, he said. You can search the ship. You can check everything. Just please don't damage the cargo bay. There's medicine in there for sick children. The lead soldier, a woman with hard features and steady eyes, stepped forward. "You will come with us. Do not resist, and no harm will come to you." "I understand." Callum lowered his hands slightly but kept them visible. "Can someone make sure the cargo bay environmental seals stay intact? Some of those medicines need to stay at specific temperatures or they'll be useless." The soldiers looked at each other. This was clearly not what they expected. They expected fear, aggression, desperation. They got a man asking about temperature controls for medicine. The lead soldier studied Callum for a long moment. Then she gave a small nod. "It will not be touched." Callum smiled. It was a real smile, warm and grateful. "Thank you. That means a lot." They let him out of his ship and into theirs. The difference was immediate. The silent passage was cramped and worn, held together by repairs and hope. The Selvari ship was clean and precise, all smooth surfaces and controlled lighting. Everything had a place. Everything worked perfectly. Callum walked through the corridors with a soldier on each side. Other Kelvari stopped to stare as he passed. A human, a real human walking through their ship. Some looked curious, some looked suspicious, a few looked angry. Callum did not make eye contact with any of them. He just kept walking, kept his face calm, tried to look as non-threatening as possible. They brought him to a small room, not a cell exactly. There was a bed, a table, a chair, and a light that gave off a soft blue glow. The door closed behind him with a quiet click, and he was alone. Callum sat down on the bed and let out a long breath. He looked at his hands again, still shaking slightly. He closed his eyes and tried to slow his breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Focus on the present. Do not think about what might happen next. After a few minutes, the shaking stopped. He opened his eyes and looked around the room. Clean, quiet, safe for now. He had survived the neutral belt. He had survived the battle. He had made it this far. Now he just had to survive whatever came next. Lyra stood in docking bay 3 and watched the Selvari patrol ship bring in the silent passage. The small cargo vessel looked worse up close. Scorch marks covered the hull. One entire panel was missing from the rear section. The remaining engine sputtered and coughed like a dying animal. But it was still flying, still intact, still carrying its cargo. She accessed the docking bay security feed on her datapad and watched the boarding process. Watched the 4 soldiers enter the human ship. Watched them emerge with a single man. He was not what she expected. She expected someone desperate, frightened, maybe angry. Someone who looked like they had just flown through hell and barely survived. What she saw was a man who walked calmly, who smiled at the soldiers when they gave him instructions, who moved through an alien warship surrounded by hostile forces like he was taking a stroll through a park. She pulled up his file on her datapad. Callum Reed, 32 years old. Earth Cargo Division for 8 years. No military service. No criminal record. No history of anything remarkable at all. Just a pilot who moved supplies from one place to another. Until today. Lyra watched the security feed as they brought him to the holding room. Watched him sit down on the bed, close his eyes, breathe slowly. Watched his hands shake and then go still. She found herself staring at his face on the screen. There was something about him. Something she could not name. A quality that did not translate through sensors or files or secondhand observation. She needed to talk to him. Needed to understand what kind of person flew alone through a war zone with nothing but medicine and hope. She closed the datapad and walked toward the holding area. Behind her in the docking bay, the silent passage sat quiet and broken and somehow still proud. Like it knew what it had accomplished. Like it knew the man who flew it was worth everything it had gone through. On the bridge of the Star Watch, Captain Oren reviewed the report from the patrol commander. She was 60 years old with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had served in the Kovari Navy for 40 years. She had seen everything there was to see. Or so she thought. She looked at the sensor logs from the battle, looked at the flight path of the small human ship, the impossible maneuvers, the refusal to retreat, the choice to surrender instead of fight. Unusual, she said quietly to herself. Her second officer, a young man named Kellis, stood beside her. Should we treat this as a security incident, Captain? Oren thought about it. Protocol said yes. An unauthorized vessel in the neutral belt. Potential espionage. potential threat, but protocol did not account for small cargo ships flying alone to deliver medicine to dying children. Contact Intelligence Officer Venn, Oren said. Have her conduct a full interrogation. I want to know everything about this human, who he is, what he's carrying, why he thought flying through a combat zone was a good idea. She paused. And I want to know if he's telling the truth. Yes, Captain. Oren looked at the sensor logs one more time. At that small ship, refusing to stop, refusing to give up. Unusual, she said again, but this time she was smiling slightly. Lyra stood outside the holding room and looked through the small window in the door. Callum sat on the bed, eyes closed, hands resting on his knees. He was breathing slowly and evenly. Meditating maybe, or praying. She was not sure which. The door had a small speaker system. She activated it. Callum Reed. His eyes opened. He looked toward the door, even though he could not see her through the darkened glass. But somehow he seemed to know exactly where she was. Yes, his voice was calm, patient. I am Intelligence Officer Lyra Venn. I will be conducting your interrogation tomorrow morning at 0800 hours. You should rest. He nodded. Thank you for telling me, and thank you for making sure my cargo is safe. I know that probably seems strange, caring more about medicine than my own life. But those supplies are for children who are dying. They matter more than I do. Lyra found herself speechless for a moment. She had interrogated dozens of prisoners. They always tried to justify themselves. Always tried to make excuses. Always put themselves first. This man was different. Get some sleep, Callum Reed, she said finally. I will. Good night, Officer Venn. She walked away from the door, but she could not stop thinking about what he had said. They matter more than I do, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, like there was no other way to think about it. She went back to the observation room and pulled up the sensor feed from the battle one more time, watched him fly through fire, watched him choose to stop instead of run, and she whispered something to herself. Something she did not plan to say. Something that came from a place inside her she did not even know existed. I want him to be mine. The words hung in the empty room for just a moment. Then they faded into silence. But they did not disappear. Not really. They stayed inside her, settled into a place where they would not be forgotten. And from that moment on, everything Lyra did, everything she thought, everything she felt was shaped by those words and the truth behind them. She had witnessed a human fight alone, and now she could not stop watching him. The next morning came quickly. Lyra had not slept well. She kept seeing that sensor feed in her mind, kept hearing Callum's voice. They matter more than I do. She had reviewed his file 3 more times during the night, looked for anything that would explain him. Found nothing except an ordinary life lived quietly. At 7:30 hours, she received a message from Captain Oren. Report to my ready room before the interrogation. Lyra walked through the corridors to the captain's quarters. The door opened before she could knock. Come in, Lyra. Captain Oren sat behind her desk, hands folded. Her face was calm but serious. I have reviewed the sensor logs from yesterday's incident, Oren said. I have also reviewed the cargo manifest from the silent passage. It appears the human is telling the truth. The ship contains nothing but medical supplies, antibiotics, painkillers, IWAS solutions, children's vitamins. Everything matches what he claimed. Then he is not a spy, Lyra said. That would be the logical conclusion. However, Commander Thane has expressed concern. He believes the human should be transferred to a tribunal for formal judgment. Lyra felt something cold settle in her stomach. Commander Thane wants a tribunal? For what charge? Unauthorized entry into Selvari space, failure to properly identify himself, potential security risk. Oren looked at Lyra directly. Thane is a hardliner. He does not trust humans. He never has. And he has the authority to request a tribunal if he believes there is sufficient cause. There is no cause. The man delivered medicine to sick children. I agree with you, but Thane outranks both of us. If he pushes this, it will go to tribunal regardless of what we think. Oren leaned forward. That is why I need you to conduct the best interrogation of your career. I need a complete picture of who this human is and why he did what he did. If we have all the facts, We can fight Thane's recommendation. Do you understand? Lyra nodded. Yes, Captain. Good. One more thing. Orin's expression softened slightly. I watched you volunteer to oversee the boarding last night. That was unusual for you. You normally prefer to stay behind the sensors. Lyra said nothing. Just be careful, Lyra. I saw that sensor feed too. I saw what he did. It is easy to mistake courage for something else. Orin paused. Make sure you stay objective. I will, Captain. But as Lyra walked toward the interrogation room, she wondered if it was already too late for objectivity. At exactly 800 hours, Lyra entered the interrogation room. It was small and simple. A table, two chairs facing each other, soft blue lighting. No windows, no decorations. Nothing to distract from the conversation that was about to happen. Callum was already there, sitting in one of the chairs. He looked rested. His hair was neater than it had been yesterday. His flight suit was still wrinkled and worn, but he wore it like it was a uniform he was proud of. When he saw Lyra, he stood, a gesture of respect. Officer Venn, he said, and good morning. She gestured for him to sit. He did. She sat across from him and activated the recording system. This interrogation is being recorded. I am Intelligence Officer Lyra Venn. You are Callum Reed, pilot of the Earth cargo vessel Silent Passage. Is that correct? Yes. Tell me why you were flying through the neutral belt. Callum looked at her steadily with those brown eyes, and she saw no fear in them. No calculation. Just honesty. I was carrying the medical supplies to Ridgeway Station. It's a small human colony about 7 days from here. They've been cut off from normal supply routes for 4 months because of the war. There's a bacterial outbreak. 43 children are sick. Some of them are dying. They need medicine that they don't have. I volunteered to bring it to them. You volunteered. No one ordered you to do this? No one ordered me. The colony sent out a distress call. No one answered. Or if they did answer, they said it was too dangerous to fly through the neutral belt. So I said I would do it. You said you would fly alone through a war zone with no weapons and no military support. Yes, that is either very brave or very stupid. Callum smiled slightly. Probably both. But those kids don't care if I'm brave or stupid. They just care if the medicine arrives. Lyra pulled up the cargo manifest on her datapad. According to this, you are carrying 847 kilograms of medical supplies, antibiotics, antivirals, pain medication, IV fluids, water purification tablets, children's vitamins, and basic surgical equipment. Total value approximately 340,000 credits. Did you purchase all of this yourself? Most of it, yes. Some was donated by medical companies when I explained what it was for, but I paid for the majority out of my savings. Your savings. Lyra looked at his file. You are a cargo pilot. You make 42,000 credits per year. How do you have 340,000 credits in savings? I don't anymore. I spent it on medicine. Lyra stared at him. You spent your entire life savings on medicine for people you have never met. Yes. Why? Callum was quiet for a moment. He looked down at his hands, then back up at her. Do you have children, Officer Venn? No, I don't either, but I keep thinking about what it would be like to be a parent on Ridgeway Station, to watch your child get sicker every day and know that the medicine that could save them exists somewhere. It's just sitting in a warehouse on some other planet, but you can't get to it, and no one will bring it to you because it's too dangerous or too expensive or too much trouble. His voice was steady, but there was emotion behind it now. I kept thinking about that, about what it would feel like to be that helpless, to have your child's life depend on someone else caring enough to help. And I realized I could be that someone. So I was. Lyra felt something crack open inside her chest. She had interrogated spies and soldiers and criminals. She knew how to detect lies. She knew how to find the truth hidden behind carefully constructed stories. There was no lie here. This man believed every word he was saying. More than that, he had risked his life because he believed it. Tell me about your journey, she said quietly. From the moment you left Earth space until the moment you were captured. Everything. Callum nodded and began to talk. He told her about leaving Callaway Base 6 days ago, about the route he had planned, avoiding known patrol zones, sticking to empty space as much as possible, About the first 2 days being quiet, almost peaceful. About the way the stars looked when you were the only person for millions of kilometers in any direction. He told her about the third day, when he picked up Varathi scout ships on his sensors and had to make a 30-hour detour through an asteroid field to avoid them. About how his navigation system got damaged when a small rock hit his ship, and he had to fly the rest of the way using manual calculations. He told her about day 5 when his food recycler broke and he had to eat nothing but protein bars for 48 hours. About day 6 when he entered the neutral belt and knew there was no turning back. And he told her about yesterday, about seeing the Varathi ships appear on his sensors, about the Selvari ships coming from the other direction, about realizing he was trapped. I could have tried to run, Callum said. There was a debris field. If I had gone through it at full speed, I might have made it to the other side, but my aft engine was already damaged. And even if I survived, the cargo bay might not have. Those supplies are sensitive. They need stable temperature and pressure. If the bay had been breached in the debris field, everything would have been destroyed. He looked at her directly. So I stopped. I surrendered, because the medicine mattered more than my life. Lyra saved the recording and sat back. You are aware that what you did was illegal. Entering Selvari space without authorization is a serious offense. I know. You could be imprisoned or executed. I know. And you did it anyway. I did it anyway. She looked at him for a long moment. What do you think should happen to you? Callum thought about it. Honestly, I think you should let me finish my delivery. Let me take the medicine to Ridgeway. Make sure those kids get what they need. After that, you can do whatever you want with me. Imprison me. Execute me. I don't care, as long as the medicine gets there. You would accept execution as long as the children were saved. Yes. Lyra stood up. This interrogation is concluded. You will remain here until a decision is made regarding your case. She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. Callum Reed, she said quietly, you are either the best person I have ever met or the worst liar. I have not decided which yet. He smiled at her, that same warm, genuine smile that seemed to come so easily to him. I hope you figure it out, Officer Venn, because I really need you to believe me. So do I, she said. Then she left. She went directly to her office and began writing her report. Every detail, every word, every impression, she made sure to note that there were no signs of deception, that his story was consistent, that the cargo matched his claims exactly. When she finished, she sent the report to Captain Oren. Then she sat alone in her office and thought about what Callum had said. The medicine mattered more than my life. She had served in the Selvari Navy for 12 years. She had met soldiers who talked about duty and honor and sacrifice, but very few of them actually meant it. Very few of them would actually choose death over retreat. This man had, without hesitation. She found herself pulling up the sensor feed again, watching him fly through the battle, watching him stop when he could have run. Who are you? She whispered to the screen. But she was starting to understand the answer. He was someone who showed up when no one else would. Someone who cared when caring was dangerous. Someone who proved that kindness was not weakness. It was the hardest kind of strength. And she wanted to protect him. Wanted to make sure the galaxy did not punish him for being good. That night, Lyra stood outside Callum's room again, looking through the window, watching him write something on a data pad that someone had given him. She activated the speaker. What are you writing? He looked up, smiled when he heard her voice. Letters, to the children at Ridgeway, in case I don't make it there. I want them to know that someone tried, that someone cared. Lyra felt tears burning behind her eyes. She blinked them away. You will make it there, she said. I will make sure of it. Thank you, Officer Venn. That means more than you know. She turned away from the door, walked back through the quiet corridors, went to Captain Orna's quarters and requested a private meeting. When she stood in front of the captain, she said, I have completed my interrogation. Callum Reed is not a spy. He is not a threat. He is a civilian humanitarian who risked his life to save children. I recommend immediate release and safe escort to Ridgeway Station. Oren looked at her carefully. I agree with your assessment. Unfortunately, Commander Thane does not. He has formally requested a tribunal. It will convene in 48 hours. On what grounds? On the grounds that unauthorized entry is unauthorized entry regardless of intent. On the grounds that we cannot set a precedent of allowing humans to fly through our space whenever they want. Oren's voice was tired. He is not wrong, Lyra. Protocol exists for a reason. Protocol was not designed to punish people for saving children. No, but it was designed to protect our borders. And Thane will argue that protecting borders is more important than one man's good intentions. Lyra felt frustration rising in her chest. So what do? We prepare. We present our case at the tribunal. We hope that the other officers see what we see. Oren looked at her seriously. And we hope that Callum Reed is as good at defending himself as he is at flying through impossible situations. Lyra walked back to her quarters. She did not sleep that night either. She spent the hours planning, preparing arguments, gathering evidence, and thinking about a man who fought alone and refused to give up. Somewhere in the holding area, Callum sat on his bed and finished writing his letters. 43 of them, one for each child. He sealed them in a message file and set them to auto-send to Ridgeway Station if his vital signs stopped registering. Then he lay down, closed his eyes, and fell asleep, dreaming of a little girl named Emma with no hair and a smile that could break your heart, dreaming of medicine arriving on time, dreaming of showing up when it mattered. Lyra did not sleep that night. She lay in her quarters staring at the ceiling, watching the soft blue lights pulse in rhythm with the ship's engines, the same rhythm she had heard for 12 years, the same rhythm that had always meant safety, duty, home. But tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt like a countdown. 48 hours until the tribunal convened. 48 hours to find a way to save a man she barely knew. A man whose only crime was caring too much about children he had never met. She kept seeing his face, the way he had looked at her through the window of his holding room, peaceful and still, like he had already made peace with whatever came next. She had seen soldiers face death with less dignity. She had seen officers with decades of training fall apart under pressure. But Callum Reed, a cargo pilot with no combat experience and no reason to be brave, sat in that small room writing letters to kids who might never know he existed. It made no sense. Or maybe it made perfect sense, and that was what terrified her. At 0400 hours, she gave up trying to sleep. She dressed in her uniform, the dark fabric smooth and familiar against her skin, and walked through the empty corridors of the Star Watch. The night shift crew nodded as she passed. None of them asked why she was awake. Officers had their reasons. Privacy was respected. She found herself standing outside Callum's room again. She did not know why she kept coming back here. She told herself it was duty, vigilance, making sure the prisoner was secure. But that was a lie, and she was tired of lying to herself. She wanted to see him, needed to see him, needed to know that he was still there, still calm, still somehow untouched by the weight of what was coming. Through the small window in the door, she saw him sitting cross-legged on the bed. His eyes were closed, his hands resting on his knees. He was breathing slowly, deeply, like someone practicing meditation. Or prayer. She did not know which. "You should be sleeping." Lyra turned. Captain Oren stood behind her, arms crossed, silver eyes sharp even in the dim quarter light. The old woman moved like a shadow when she wanted to. It was unnerving. "I could say the same to you, Captain," Lyra said quietly. Oren walked closer, looked through the window at Callum. Interesting man. He is a civilian cargo pilot. Nothing interesting about that. Then why are you standing outside his door at 4 in the morning? Lyra said nothing. There was no good answer to that question. Oren studied her for a long moment. Then she sighed, the sound heavy with something that might have been sympathy. "I received a transmission 2 hours ago. Doctor, Helena Ashford is arriving at 0800. She says you requested her presence." "I did." "She is a human rights legal advisor, Lyra, not a defense attorney. She cannot represent him at the tribunal." "I know. Then what exactly do you think she can do?" Lyra met Oren's eyes. "She can teach me how to fight for him." Oren was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Commander Thane is already preparing his case. He has been working through the night. He wants this human dead, Lyra. You know that, don't you?" "I know. And you are going to fight him anyway." "Yes." Oren looked at Callum through the window again. "Why, what is he to you?" Lyra thought about that question. She thought about the sensor feed, about watching him fly through fire and destruction without turning back. She thought about the way he had smiled at the guards when they came to arrest him, no fear in his expression, just quiet acceptance. She thought about his first words. Is my cargo intact? Not am I going to die? He is proof, Lyra said finally. Proof that someone can still choose kindness when the world is burning. I have served in this Navy for 12 years, Captain. I have seen a lot of things, but I have never seen anyone like him. And if we kill him for being good, then what does that make us? Oren was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer than Lyra had ever heard it. You are risking everything for this. You know, your career, your reputation. Thane will not forget. He will not forgive. I know. And you are doing it anyway. Yes. Oren put a hand on Lyra's shoulder. It was a gesture she had never made before, not in all the years they had served together. Then I will help you however I can. But Lyra, she paused, be prepared for the possibility that it will not be enough. Lyra looked through the window one more time. Callum had opened his eyes. He was looking directly at her, even though he could not possibly see her through the darkened glass. But somehow he knew she was there. He smiled, small, warm, like he was telling her it was going to be okay. It has to be enough, Lyra whispered. It has to be. Dr. Helena Ashford arrived at precisely 800 hours. She was not what Lyra expected. Most diplomats walked with authority, shoulders back, voices loud. Helena Ashford walked quietly, almost unnoticed. A small woman with auburn hair, pulled into a simple knot, and pale blue eyes that seemed to see more than they should. She wore civilian clothes, nothing official, just a gray jacket and dark pants. But when she spoke, her voice carried weight. Officer Venn, she said, extending her hand. I came as quickly as I could. Lyra shook her hand. Human customs. She had studied them. Thank you for coming, Dr. Ashford. I know this was short notice. Call me Helena, and short notice is my specialty. She looked around the docking bay, taking in the Selvari ship with professional interest. I have never been on a Selvari military vessel before. It is quieter than I expected. We value efficiency. So I have heard. Helena turned her attention fully to Lyra. Tell me everything. Leave nothing out. I need to understand exactly what we are dealing with. They walked to Lyra's office, a small room with a single desk and walls covered in star maps. Lyra pulled up the files on her screen and began to talk. She told Helena about the sensor feed, about watching a single human fly through fire and explosions to survive. She told Helena about the cargo report, about every single item on the ship being medicine meant for sick children. She told her about the interrogation, about how Callum had told the truth from the very first moment, about how his only concern had been whether the medicine was safe. Helena listened without interrupting. She took notes on a small data pad, her fingers moving quickly and precisely. When Lyra finished, Helena sat back and was quiet for a moment. Commander Thane, she said finally, tell me about him. He is a senior officer, decorated, respected. He has served for 30 years. And he hates humans. It was not a question. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Why? I do not know. He has never said. Helena made another note. We need to find out. People do not hate without reason. If we understand his reason, we can anticipate his moves. You sound like you have done this before. I have been fighting tribunals for 15 years, Lyra. I have seen every trick in the book. Helena looked up, her pale eyes sharp. But I need you to understand something. I cannot represent Callum Reed. Selvari military law does not allow non-Selvari advocates in tribunal proceedings. I can advise you. I can coach you. I can tell you what to say and how to say it. But when you walk into that room, you will be alone. Do you understand? Lyra felt something cold settle in her stomach. I am not a lawyer. No, but you are a witness. You saw what he did. You know who he is. That is more powerful than any legal argument I could make. Helena leaned forward. The tribunal is not just about evidence, Lyra. It is about story, about making them see what you see. Can you do that? Lyra thought about Callum sitting in his room writing letters to children. She thought about Emma, the little girl whose picture he had shown her. 7 years old, bald from chemotherapy, smiling anyway. Yes, she said. I can do that. Good. Then we start now. First step, I need to talk to him. They brought Callum to the interrogation room at 1000 hours. He looked the same as he had the first time Lyra saw him. Calm, open, no trace of fear on his face. When he saw Helena, he smiled. Dr. Ashford, he said, I have heard of you. You helped the Dalton colony workers get amnesty 3 years ago. Helena raised an eyebrow. You follow human rights cases? I fly cargo. I meet a lot of people. They talk. He sat down in the chair across from them. So you are here to help Lyra build a case against me being executed. That is nice of you. I am here to help Lyra build a case for you being freed, Helena corrected. There is a difference. Is there? Callum's smile did not fade, but something in his gaze shifted. Because from where I am sitting, it feels like the outcome is already decided. Commander Thane wants me dead. He has the evidence. He has the authority. What you have is hope. And hope is not enough to win tribunals. No, Helena said quietly, but truth is, and I need you to tell me the truth about everything. No omissions, no protecting yourself. If we are going to save your life, I need to know every single detail of your journey to Ridgeway Station. Callum looked at Lyra. She nodded. He took a breath. Then he began to talk. He told them about Ridgeway Station, a small human colony on the edge of the neutral belt. 300 people, mostly families, mostly farmers trying to grow food on a planet with thin soil and harsh weather. He told them about the outbreak, a bacterial infection that spread through the children first, then the elderly, about how the supply routes had been cut off for months because of the war, about how the colony sent out distress calls that no one answered. I was not supposed to hear about it, Callum said, but I have a friend who works in dispatch at Callaway Base. She told me. She said someone needed to go. She said no one was volunteering because the route went straight through the neutral belt and everyone knew that was suicide. So you volunteered, Lyra said. So I volunteered. He looked down at his hands. I knew it was dangerous. I am not stupid. But I kept thinking about those kids, about what it would be like to be 7 years old and sick and watching your parents cry because there is no medicine. I kept thinking that if it were me, if I were that kid, I would want someone to care enough to try. So I did. Helena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, tell me about Emma. Callum's face softened. Her mother sent me a message before I left. Attached a picture. Emma was 7. She had leukemia. The colony's medical supplies ran out 2 weeks before I got the call. Without the right drugs, she had maybe another month, maybe less. He pulled up a hologram from his comm device, the one he had shown Lyra before. The little girl with no hair, big brown eyes, smiling like the world was not trying to kill her. I have never met her, but I think about her every day. Helena studied the hologram. Then she looked at Lyra. This is what you show the tribunal, not just the cargo report. This, the reason behind the mission. Will it be enough, Lyra asked. It should be, but we are not dealing with a rational opposition. Commander Thane is not going to care about sick children. He is going to care about security, about protocol, about the fact that a human ship entered Chelvari territory without authorization. Helena turned back to Callum. Is there anything else? Anything that could be used against you? Callum hesitated. Lyra saw it. That tiny pause, that flicker of something in his steady gaze. What is it? She asked. It is nothing. Callum, Helena's voice was firm. If there is something, we need to know now. Not when Commander Thane brings it up in front of the tribunal. Callum was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I have done this before. Lyra felt her stomach drop. Done what before? Flown into dangerous territory to deliver medical supplies. This was not the first time. It was not even the second time. He looked at both of them, his face serious now. Over the last 4 years, I have made 6 runs like this, different colonies. Same situation. Supply routes cut off because of the war, people dying, no one willing to help. So I went. 6 times, Helena said slowly. You have risked your life 6 times for people you do not know. Yes. And you never reported it, never filed official requests, never asked for authorization. No, because if I had asked, they would have said no. So I just went. Lyra stared at him. Why are you only telling us this now? Because it makes me look worse, not better, Callum said quietly. It proves I have a pattern of ignoring protocol, of going where I am not supposed to go, of making myself a security risk. He met her eyes. Commander Thane is going to use this. He is going to say that I am reckless, that I cannot be trusted, that I am a threat to Silvari interests. And you know what? He is right. I am reckless. I do ignore protocol. Because protocol says let people die if it is too dangerous to save them. And I cannot do that. I will not do that. The room was silent. Helena wrote something down on her datapad. Then she looked up. This changes the strategy, but it does not change the truth. You are not a spy. You are not a threat. You are a man who saves lives. We can work with that. Can we? Lyra's voice was sharper than she intended. Because it sounds like we just gave Thane exactly what he needs to convict him. No, Helena said calmly. We gave ourselves a weapon. Thane is going to argue that Callum is a security risk because he acts without authorization. We are going to argue that he is a humanitarian who has saved hundreds of lives while our governments did nothing. Who looks worse in that story? Lyra thought about it. Then slowly she nodded. We need documentation. Proof that he really did save those colonies. I can get that, Callum said. I kept records, manifests, receipts for the supplies I purchased. Messages from the colony leaders thanking me. It is all in my personal files back on Callaway Base. We do not have time to retrieve those files, Lyra said. The tribunal convenes in 36 hours. Helena was already typing on her datapad. I have contacts on Callaway Base. I can have someone access your files remotely. Callum, I need your authorization codes. He gave them. Helena sent the message. Then she sat back and looked at both of them. Now we wait, she said, and we prepare. Lyra, you need to practice your presentation. You need to be able to tell this story in a way that makes the tribunal see Callum as a hero, not a criminal. Can you do that? Lyra looked at Callum. He was watching her with those steady brown eyes. No fear, no desperation. Just quiet faith that she would do what she could. Yes, she said, I can do that. The tribunal convened at 900 hours the next morning. The chamber was a large, circular room with high ceilings and walls made of dark blue metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 7 chairs were arranged in a half circle around a central open space where the accused would stand. Above the chairs, the seal of the Kovari Navy hung in silver and gold, a star surrounded by 7 points, representing the 7 core principles: justice, duty, honor, strength, wisdom, loyalty, compassion. Lyra wondered if Commander Thane remembered that last one. She stood to the side of the room with Helena, watching as the tribunal officers filed in. 6 men and 1 woman, all senior commanders, all with faces that gave nothing away. They took their seats without speaking. The room felt cold, sterile, like a place where emotions went to die. Commander Thane stood on the opposite side of the chamber. He wore his full-dress uniform, dark blue with gold medals across his chest. His face was hard, his eyes colder than Lyra had ever seen them. He looked at her once, briefly, and she saw something in that look that made her skin crawl. He wanted her to fail. No, he needed her to fail. The tribunal head, a broad-shouldered man named Commander Varric, struck the gavel 3 times. The sound echoed through the chamber like a death knell. This tribunal is now in session. The accused, Callum Reed, will enter. The doors opened. 2 guards brought Callum in. He wore simple gray clothes, no restraints, no visible signs of mistreatment. He walked calmly to the center of the room and stood there, hands at his sides, back straight. He did not look afraid. He looked like a man standing in line at the market, waiting his turn. Commander Varric spoke. Callum Reed, you are charged with unauthorized entry into Silvari military space, failure to respond to proper identification protocols, and suspected espionage activities. How do you plead? Not guilty, Callum said. His voice was steady. Commander Thane, present your case. Thane stepped forward. He did not look at Callum. He looked at the tribunal. Honored members, he said, the evidence is clear. This human entered our territory without authorization. He ignored all attempts at communication. He carried cargo that, while appearing to be medical supplies, could easily conceal weapons or surveillance equipment. We cannot take his word that he is what he claims to be. The security of our people depends on vigilance. on treating all unauthorized incursions as potential threats. I recommend execution as an example to other humans who might think they can violate our borders with impunity." He sat down. The whole speech had taken less than 2 minutes. Commander Varric looked at Lyra. "Officer Venn, you have requested permission to speak on behalf of the accused. State your case." Lyra stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. She had practiced this. She had gone over it with Helena a dozen times. She knew what to say. But then she looked at Callum, and all the practiced words disappeared. She saw him standing there, calm and quiet, trusting her to fight for him. She saw Emma's picture in her mind, the little girl with no hair, smiling. She saw the sensor feed, Callum flying through fire because children were dying and someone had to care. And she knew that legal arguments were not going to work. Not here. Not with these men who saw humans as enemies and protocol as gospel. She needed to make them see what she saw. "I witnessed this man fight alone," she said. The tribunal members looked at her. She continued. "3 nights ago, I was monitoring the neutral belt. I saw a small cargo vessel enter a combat zone. Varathi and Selvari ships were engaging. This vessel was caught between them. I watched him on my sensors. I watched him dodge fire from both sides. I watched his ship get hit, his engine explode, his hull tear open, and I watched him keep flying." She pulled up the sensor feed on the main display. The holographic image filled the air above them. Callum's ship, small and fragile, moving through streams of weapons fire like a dancer through rain. He was not running from us. He was not attacking anyone. He was trying to survive. And when our ships surrounded him, when he had one chance to escape through the debris field, he did something I have never seen before. He stopped. He powered down his engines. He surrendered. She paused the feed on the moment when the silent passage went dark, weapon systems offline, no threat to anyone. His first words were not, "Am I going to die?" His first words were, "Is my cargo intact?" Because his cargo was medicine. Medicine for a human colony where 43 children were dying from a bacterial outbreak. Medicine that he flew through hell to deliver because no one else would. She switched the display to the cargo report. Page after page of medical supplies, antibiotics, painkillers, IV fluids, children's vitamins. There were no weapons, no surveillance equipment, no hidden agendas, just medicine. Exactly what he said it was, because Callum Reed told the truth. From the first moment to this one, he has told the complete, simple, dangerous truth. She looked at each tribunal member in turn. "Commander Thane says we should execute him as an example." An example of what? That kindness is a crime? That saving children makes you an enemy? That telling the truth earns you death? "Officer Venn," Thane started to interrupt. "I am not finished," Lyra said, her voice sharp. The tribunal head gestured for her to continue. "I interrogated this man myself. I reviewed every piece of evidence. I verified his story. And what I found was not a spy or a threat. What I found was a cargo pilot who has spent the last 4 years of his life risking everything to save people. 6 colonies, hundreds of lives, and he never asked for recognition, never filed reports, never sought glory. He just did it because it was right." She pulled up the documentation that Helena's contacts had sent from Callaway Base. Manifests, receipts, messages from grateful colony leaders. "This is who we are executing. This is the threat we cannot tolerate. A man who cares too much, who acts when others hide, who chooses life over safety every single time." Her voice broke slightly on the last words. She took a breath, steadied herself. "If we kill him, we do not protect ourselves. We prove that we have become exactly what we fear. We prove that the war has already won." She stepped back. The chamber was silent. Commander Varric looked at Thane. "Vishyamne-san, do you have a response?" Thane stood slowly. His face was dark with anger. "The officer speaks with passion but ignores facts. This human entered our space illegally. That alone justifies detention. But there is more." He pulled up a new display. "During our investigation, we discovered something Officer Venn failed to mention. A coded transmission sent from Callum Reed's ship 3 days ago, sent to an unknown recipient. The content is encrypted, but the pattern matches known intelligence protocols." Lyra's blood went cold. The display showed a transmission log, timestamp 3 days ago, source, silent passage, destination, unknown, status, encrypted. It looked exactly like what a spy would send. Callum's face went pale. I did not send that. I have never sent any coded transmissions. My communications array was damaged in the battle. I could not send anything even if I wanted to. So you claim, Thane said, but the evidence speaks for itself. The tribunal members were murmuring to each other. Lyra could see it in their eyes, the doubt creeping in, the suspicion. Everything she had said, every argument she had made, was crumbling under the weight of that one piece of evidence. Helena had been right. Thane had a trick ready, and it was working. Request a recess, Helena whispered from the side of the room. Lyra looked at Commander Varric. I request a 4-hour recess to examine this new evidence. Varric conferred with the other tribunal members. Then he nodded. Recess granted. We reconvene at 1400 hours. The gavel struck 3 times. Lyra turned to Callum. He was staring at the transmission log like it was a death sentence. I did not send it, he said quietly. Lyra, I swear to you, I did not send it. She wanted to believe him. She did believe him, but belief was not going to save his life. She needed proof. And she had 4 hours to find it. The investigation room was cold. Lyra stood in front of 3 monitors, each one displaying a different angle of the transmission data that Commander Thane had presented. Helena sat beside her, fingers flying across a data pad, pulling up technical specifications and signal analysis reports. Captain Oren stood by the door, arms crossed, watching them work. 4 hours. That was all they had. The timestamp says the transmission originated from the silent passage 3 days ago, Lyra said, her voice tight. But Callum's communications array was damaged in the battle. I saw the damage report myself when we brought his ship aboard. Then how did a transmission get sent? Oren asked. It did not. Helena looked up from her data pad, eyes sharp. Look at the signal strength. A transmission from the silent passage at that distance should register at 4.7 kilowatts. This one registers at 6.2. Lyra leaned closer to the monitor. That means the transmission originated from somewhere closer. Much closer. Helena pulled up a star map overlaying the signal data. Based on these readings, the actual origin point was here. She highlighted a location, approximately 20,000 kilometers from the silent passage. That is where the Selvari patrol ships were positioned, Oren said quietly. The 3 women looked at each other. Thane planted it, Lyra said. He sent a transmission from one of our own ships and made it look like it came from Callum's vessel. Can you prove it? Oren asked. Helena's fingers flew across the data pad again. The transmission routing should show the actual origin ship, but those logs are classified. Security level 7. I do not have clearance. I do, Oren said. She walked to the terminal and entered her authorization codes. The screen flickered, then displayed a series of encrypted files. She opened one, read it. Her face went very still. What is it? Lyra asked. Oren turned the screen so they could see. The transmission origin log was clear. Selvari Patrol Vessel Nightfall. Commander Thane's ship. He falsified evidence, Lyra said. That is a court-martial offense. It is also our way out, Helena said. If we present this to the tribunal, they will not believe it, Oren interrupted. Thane has served for 30 years. He has friends on that tribunal. They will say the logs were tampered with, that we are desperate, that we fabricated this to save the human. Then what do we do? Lyra's voice cracked slightly. We have proof. We have the truth. What more do they need? Oren looked at her for a long moment. They need you to be willing to lose everything to prove it. The tribunal reconvened at exactly 1400 hours. Lyra stood in the same spot she had stood before, but everything felt different now, heavier, like the air itself was pressing down on her chest. Callum was brought in again. He looked at her, and she saw the question in his eyes. Did you find something? She gave the smallest nod. His shoulders relaxed slightly. Commander Varric struck the gavel. Officer Venn, have you examined the evidence presented by Commander Thane? I have. And what is your conclusion? Lyra took a breath. The transmission is false. It was not sent from the silent passage. It was sent from Commander Thane's patrol vessel and made to appear as if it originated from Callum Reed's ship. The room erupted, tribunal members talking over each other. Thane on his feet, face red with fury. "That is a lie," he shouted. "A desperate fabrication." "I have the routing logs," Lyra said calmly. She pulled them up on the display. Level 7 security clearance. They show the actual origin of the transmission. The Nightfall. "Your ship, Commander." Thane stared at the display. For just a moment, something flickered across his face, not guilt. Recognition. He had not expected her to find this. "Those logs could have been altered, Bus," he said. "Anyone with sufficient technical knowledge could forge them." "They are authenticated with Captain Oren's command codes," Lyra said. "Are you accusing a 30-year veteran captain of falsifying evidence?" Silence. Commander Varric looked at Oren. "Captain, is this true? Did you access these logs yourself?" Oren stepped forward. "I did, under my authority as senior officer on the Star Watch. The logs are genuine. Commander Thane sent that transmission from his own vessel and planted it in Callum Reed's records." Thane's face went cold. "Why would I do such a thing?" "Because you want this human dead," Lyra said quietly. "You have wanted it from the moment he was brought aboard, and I want to know why." The tribunal chamber went very still. Thane looked at her with something like hatred in his eyes. "You dare." "I dare," Lyra said, "because an innocent man's life hangs in the balance, and you are willing to falsify evidence to end it. So tell us, Commander, why do you hate humans so much?" Thane said nothing. His jaw was clenched so tight Lyra could see the muscles jumping. It was Captain Oren who spoke. Her voice was soft but clear. "Commander Thane's son was killed 12 years ago. A human merchant vessel collided with a Solvari outpost. 47 Kolvari died, including Thane's only child." Lyra felt something crack open in her chest. She looked at Thane and saw it now. Not just hatred, grief, old and deep and still bleeding. "I am sorry," she said, and she meant it. "I am sorry for your loss. But Callum Reed did not kill your son. Executing him will not bring your child back. It will only prove that pain can make us into something we never wanted to be." Bishop Thane's hands were shaking. "You know nothing about pain." "Then teach me," Lyra said. "Help me understand. But do not ask me to let an innocent man die because you are still grieving." For a long moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then Thane sat down. He did not say anything. He just sat, looking at his hands, looking like a man who had been carrying something too heavy for too long. Commander Varric cleared his throat. "In light of this evidence, the tribunal will take a brief recess to deliberate. We will return with our decision shortly." The gavel struck once. The tribunal members stood and filed out of the room. Lyra stood frozen in place. Helena touched her shoulder. "You did well. Now we wait." But waiting was the hardest part. 15 minutes later, the tribunal returned. Commander Varric's face was unreadable as he took his seat. The other members sat beside him, expressions carefully neutral. "This tribunal has reviewed all evidence presented," Varric said. "We have determined that the transmission evidence provided by Commander Thane was indeed falsified. Commander Thane will face disciplinary proceedings for falsifying evidence in a military tribunal." Thane's face went white. "However," Varric continued, "the charge of unauthorized entry into Solvari space remains. Callum Reed did enter our territory without proper authorization. Regardless of intent, this constitutes a violation of Solvari military law." Lyra's heart stopped. "Therefore, we put the matter to vote. All in favor of conviction on the charge of unauthorized entry with sentencing to include execution." 5 hands went up. Lyra felt the floor drop out from under her. "All in favor of acquittal?" 4 hands. The vote is 5-4. Callum Reed is found guilty of unauthorized entry into Solvari space. Sentencing. Execution by firing squad to be carried out in 48 hours. The gavel struck 3 times. Callum stood very still in the center of the room. His face showed no fear, just quiet acceptance. Lyra could not breathe, could not think. Everything she had done, everything she had risked, and it was not enough. Helena grabbed her arm. "Lyra, listen to me. This is not over. They sentenced him to death. I know, but there is one more option. The High Council." Lyra looked at her. "The High Council does not overturn military tribunals. They can, with unanimous vote. It is rare, but it has happened." Helena's eyes were fierce. But you cannot appeal as a military officer. You have to resign your commission. Become a civilian advocate. Resign. Lyra felt dizzy. It is the only way. Military officers cannot challenge tribunal decisions, but civilians can appeal directly to the High Council. Helena squeezed her arm. You would lose your rank, your career, everything you have built, but it is the only chance he has. Lyra looked at Callum. The guards were putting restraints on him now, preparing to take him back to holding. He looked at her one last time, and in his eyes she saw not blame, not anger, just gratitude. Thank you for trying, those eyes said. It was enough that you cared, but it was not enough. It could not be enough. She thought about what he had told her, about growing up alone, about wishing someone would show up for him, about becoming the person he needed. She thought about the sensor feed, about him flying through fire for children he had never met. She thought about what she had whispered in the dark. I want him to be mine. And she realized what that really meant. It meant showing up. It meant fighting when fighting seemed hopeless. It meant being willing to lose everything if it meant saving someone who mattered. Where do I sign? Lyra said. Captain Orrin appeared beside them. She held a data pad. I already prepared the resignation papers. I hoped you would not need them, but I knew you might. Lyra looked at the old captain. You knew I would do this. I knew you cared about him more than you cared about your career. That became obvious days ago. Orrin's expression was sad, but not surprised. You will make a good civilian advocate, Lyra. Better than you ever were as an officer. Lyra took the data pad. Read the resignation form. Standard language. Effective immediately. No takebacks, no second chances. She pressed her thumb to the authentication pad. The screen flashed. Resignation accepted. Rank, none. Status, civilian. She was no longer intelligence officer Lyra Venn. She was just Lyra. No rank, no authority, no protection. She had never felt more powerful. I need to speak with Callum, she said, before they take him away. Orrin nodded. You have 5 minutes. Lyra walked to where Callum stood with the guards. I need a moment alone with him. The guards looked uncertain. Orrin gave them a nod. They stepped back. Lyra stood in front of Callum. His hands were bound, but his eyes were free, and they were looking at her with something that made her chest ache. You resigned, he said softly. I heard them talking. You gave up everything. Not everything, just a career. She reached out and touched his hands. The restraints were cold. His skin was warm. I am appealing to the High Council. It is a long shot, but it is a chance. Lyra, you did not have to. Yes, I did. She looked at him directly. You spent your whole life wishing someone would show up for you. So I am showing up. I am fighting for you, and I am not going to stop until you are free or until there is nothing left to fight with. Callum's eyes were bright with tears. Wait, hey. She thought about all the reasons. About the sensor feed, about the medicine, about Emma, about everything he represented and everything he was. But in the end, she gave him the simplest truth. Because I witnessed you fight alone, and I could not let you die alone. He smiled through the tears. Thank you. The guard stepped forward. Time was up. As they led Callum away, he looked back at her one last time. I will see you on the other side of this, he said, whatever that looks like. Then he was gone. Lyra stood in the empty tribunal chamber and felt the weight of what she had just done settle onto her shoulders. She had no rank, no career, no certainty that any of this would work. But she had purpose. She had truth. And she had 24 hours to save a man who had shown her what real courage looked like. She turned to Helena. Tell me what to do. Helena smiled grimly. First, we prepare your case for the High Council. Then we pray they have enough wisdom left to see what we see. 24 hours to execution. Lyra sat in a small civilian waiting room on the administrative level of the Star Watch, no longer permitted in military sections without escort. The room was plain, a few chairs, a single window showing stars, a table with a water dispenser. She wore civilian clothes now, plain gray pants and a dark blue shirt. No uniform, no insignia, nothing to mark her as someone who had served for 12 years. She felt naked without it, but she also felt free. Helena sat across from her, data pad balanced on her knees, going over the presentation one more time. The High Council meets in 3 hours, 9 members, all of them senior administrators, some military background, some civilian. They require unanimous vote to overturn a tribunal decision. Unanimous, Lyra said. That means all 9 have to agree. Yes. What are our chances? Helena was quiet for a moment, then she said, honestly? 20%, maybe less. High Council appeals almost never succeed. The Council trusts military tribunals to make correct decisions. Overturning one undermines the entire system. So we are asking them to undermine their own authority. We are asking them to choose justice over protocol. It is a hard sell. Helena looked up. But I have seen longer shots succeed. We have truth on our side. Sometimes that is enough. And if it is not? Helena did not answer. She did not need to. Lyra stood and walked into the window. Outside, stars moved slowly past as the ship maintained its patrol route. Somewhere out there, 7 days away, Ridgeway Station was still waiting for medicine. Children were still sick. Parents were still desperate. And the man who had tried to save them was going to die in 24 hours. Tell me the plan again, Lyra said. Helena set down her datapad. You present the evidence. All of it. The sensor feed, the cargo report, the interrogation transcripts, the falsified transmission, Callum's history of humanitarian missions. You make them see him as a person, not a file number. And then? Then we hope the Council asks for testimony from Ridgeway Station. But Ridgeway is 7 days away, which is why I have already contacted someone there. Dr. Sarah Reeves, chief physician. I helped her sister years ago with a legal matter. She owes me. Helena pulled up a comm log. I sent her a message last night. Quantum communication. Expensive, but worth it. She is standing by for a live testimony link. Lyra turned from the window. You did that without telling me? I did it because it might be our only chance. The Council will want proof that Callum really did save those children. Sarah can provide it. She can show them Emma. Show them what happens when someone actually cares enough to help. If the Council even asks. They will ask. I have been doing this for 15 years. I know how these people think. They will want verification. Helena stood. The question is whether we can get Sarah's testimony before the Council votes. Quantum communication is instant, but the equipment takes time to set up properly. She has 2 hours. And if the equipment fails, then we fight with what we have. Helena met Lyra's eyes. But I need you to be ready for the possibility that we lose. That even with everything we present, the Council votes to uphold the tribunal's decision. Can you handle that? Lyra thought about Callum sitting in a holding cell, writing letters to children he would never meet. She thought about the way he smiled even when facing death. She thought about what he had said to her. I will see you on the other side of this, whatever that looks like. No, Lyra said honestly, I cannot handle it, but I will do it anyway. Good. Helena picked up her datapad, because it is time to go. The High Council chamber was different from the tribunal room. Where the tribunal had been cold and sterile, this was warm and ornate. The walls were decorated with historical tapestries showing Calvary achievements, scientific discoveries, artistic masterpieces, peace treaties. The chairs were arranged in a semicircle, but they were made of polished wood instead of metal, and each one had cushions. This was a place for thoughtful deliberation, not military judgment. 9 council members sat in their chairs, 5 men, 4 women, all older than Lyra, all wearing formal robes in varying shades of blue. They looked distinguished, wise, tired. The council head was a woman named Administrator Kess. She had white hair pulled back in an elaborate knot, and eyes that were kind but sharp. She looked at Lyra with something that might have been sympathy. Lyra Venn, she said. Her voice was warm, like autumn sunlight. I understand you resigned your commission yesterday to bring this appeal. That was a significant sacrifice. It was necessary, Lyra said. Perhaps, we shall see. Kess gestured to the center of the room. You have 1 hour to present your case. Use it well. Lyra walked to the center of the chamber. Helena remained in the observation section, not permitted to speak, but allowed to watch. 1 hour, 60 minutes, to save a life. She activated the display system and pulled up the first piece of evidence, the sensor feed from 3 nights ago. Council members, she said, I want to show you something. This is a recording from our long-range sensors. It shows a single human cargo vessel entering the neutral belt, 3 nights ago. The holographic image appeared above them, the silent passage, small and alone, moving through the dark. This ship had one pilot, no weapons, no military escort, just a man named Callum Reed carrying medicine to a colony where children were dying. She played the feed, the Varathi ships appearing, the Selvari ships responding, the small cargo vessel caught between them. Some of the council members leaned forward, watching, really watching. He could have turned back, Lyra said. He could have fled, but he did not. He flew straight through the battle because he knew that if he did not deliver that medicine, children would die. She showed them this moment when the silent passage took multiple hits, the engine exploding, the hull tearing. He should have died here, but he did not. He kept flying. And when our ships surrounded him, when he had one last chance to escape, he did something I have never seen a pilot do. She paused the feed on the moment when the silent passage went dark. He surrendered, not because he was afraid, because fighting would have damaged his cargo. And the cargo mattered more to him than his own life. She pulled up the cargo report. Let them see the pages of medical supplies, every item documented, every item exactly what Callum said it was. There were no weapons, no spy equipment, no hidden agenda, just medicine, antibiotics for bacterial infections, painkillers for children in agony, IV fluids for dehydration, everything a small colony would need to fight an outbreak. One of the council members, a man with gray streaks in his blue hair, spoke. We have reviewed the tribunal transcripts. The evidence against Callum Reed was clear. He entered Selvari space without authorization. That is a crime regardless of intent. It is, Lyra agreed, but I want you to understand the intent. I want you to understand who this man is. She pulled up the interrogation recordings. Let them hear Callum's voice explaining about Ridgeway Station, about the children, about Emma. She showed them Emma's picture, 7 years old, no hair, smiling. This is who Callum Reed risked his life for, a child he had never met, a child whose only hope was that someone somewhere would care enough to help. She showed them the documentation from Callum's other missions. 6 colonies over 4 years, hundreds of lives saved. This was not a one-time act of recklessness. This is who he is, someone who shows up when no one else will, someone who proves that kindness is not weakness. It is the hardest kind of courage. She took a breath. This was the difficult part. The tribunal voted to execute him because he violated protocol. They are not wrong, he did violate protocol. But I am asking you to consider whether protocol should matter more than human life, whether rules should matter more than compassion. She looked at each council member in turn. Commander Thane falsified evidence to ensure Callum's conviction. He planted a transmission and claimed it came from Callum's ship. Why? Because Thane's son died in an accident involving a human vessel 12 years ago. He has carried that grief ever since, and he wanted revenge. She pulled up the routing logs showing the false transmission originated from Thane's ship. Thane has been disciplined, but the damage was done. The tribunal voted 5-4 for execution, 5 officers who saw an unauthorized entry and nothing else, who did not see a man, who did not see children dying, who saw only a rule violation. Her voice grew stronger. You are the High Council. You have the authority to overturn that decision, to choose mercy over judgment, to prove that our civilization is built on more than just rules and borders. I am asking you, begging you, to look at the evidence and see what I saw. Not a criminal, a hero. She stepped back. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Administrator Kess spoke. Your presentation is compelling, Lyra Venn, but we need verification. We need proof that Callum Reed actually saved these children. That Ridgeway Station truly needed this medicine. This was the moment, the pivot point. I can provide that, Lyra said. Dr. Sarah Reeves, chief physician at Ridgeway Station, is standing by via quantum communication link. She can testify to what Callum did. She can show you the results. Another council member, a woman with sharp features, frowned. Ridgeway Station is 7 days away. How did you arrange a quantum communication link? Dr. Helena Ashford arranged it. She is a human rights legal advisor who has been assisting me. Lyra gestured to where Helena sat. She has contacts at Ridgeway. They set up the equipment last night. Administrator Kess conferred quietly with the other council members. Then she nodded. We will hear Dr. Reeves's testimony. Establish the link. Helena activated her datapad. A holographic projection field appeared in the center of the chamber. For a moment, nothing happened. Static. Interference. Then the image resolved. Dr. Sarah Reeves appeared. She was a woman in her late 40s with short blonde hair and exhausted eyes. She wore medical scrubs stained with something that might have been blood or chemicals. Behind her, Lyra could see a medical facility. Basic, functional, overwhelmed. Dr. Reeves, Administrator Kess said, thank you for making yourself available. We need you to testify regarding Callum Reed and the medical supplies he was transporting. Sarah nodded. I will tell you whatever you need to know, but first let me show you something. She adjusted her holographic emitter. The view shifted. A small room appeared. Medical equipment, IV stands, and children. Dozens of children in beds, some sleeping, some awake. All of them thin, pale, sick, but alive. This is our pediatric ward, Sarah said. Her voice was hoarse. 6 weeks ago, we had 73 children in here. Bacterial outbreak, highly resistant strain. We ran out of the right antibiotics within days. We sent distress calls to everyone we could reach. No one responded. Or they said it was too dangerous to fly through the war zone. The holographic view moved through the ward. Lyra saw parents sitting beside beds, saw medical staff moving efficiently between patients, saw machines monitoring vital signs. 43 of these children were in critical condition. Without proper medication, they would have died within weeks, maybe days for some. Sarah's voice broke slightly. I am a doctor. I took an oath to save lives, but I could not save them. We had nothing left. We were watching them die. She stopped at one bed. A little girl was sitting up, playing with a stuffed animal. Her head was bald, but her cheeks had color. Her eyes were bright. This is Emma, Sarah said softly. 7 years old, leukemia. The outbreak hit her especially hard because her immune system was already compromised. 3 weeks ago, she was dying. I gave her 48 hours, maybe less. Emma looked up at the holographic emitter and waved. A small, cheerful wave like everything was fine. Sarah's voice was thick with emotion now. Then Callum Reed arrived. He flew through a battle. He took hits from both Varathi and Selvari ships. His ship was falling apart, but he made it. He delivered every single piece of medicine we needed. Antibiotics, antivirals, IV fluids, everything. The view pulled back to show the full ward again. These children are alive because of him. 43 families still have their sons and daughters because one man decided that their lives mattered more than his safety. Sarah looked directly at the council. I do not know your laws. I do not know your protocols. But I know this. Callum Reed is the only person who showed up when we needed help. He is the only one who cared. And if you execute him for that, you are not enforcing law. You are punishing compassion. The hologram flickered. Then Emma's face filled the screen. She smiled, wide and genuine. Tell Mr. Callum thank you, she said. Her voice was small but clear. Tell him we are okay. Tell him we love him. The hologram ended. The chamber was silent. Lyra looked at the council members. Some of them had tears in their eyes. All of them were staring at the space where Emma's image had been. Administrator Kess cleared her throat. Dr. Reeves, one final question. You said Callum Reed was the only one who responded to your distress calls. Are you saying that multiple governments and organizations refused to help? Yes, Sarah said. Her voice was hard now. We sent requests to Earth Central Command, to Selvari Humanitarian Aid, to 3 different merchant guilds. Everyone said the same thing. Too dangerous, too expensive, not their problem. Callum Reed was not part of any organization. He was just a cargo pilot who heard about sick children and decided to help. He spent his entire life savings on medicine. He flew alone through a war zone. He risked everything, and he asked for nothing in return. Thank you, Dr. Reeves. That will be all. The holographic link ended. Sarah disappeared. The chamber felt empty without her. Administrator Kess looked at Lyra. You have presented your case. The council will now deliberate. Please wait outside. Lyra walked out of the chamber. Helena followed. They stood in the corridor. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say. It was out of their hands now. 15 minutes passed, 20, 30, then the door opened. An aide gestured for them to enter. Lyra walked back into the chamber. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. The 9 council members sat in their chairs. Their faces were neutral, professional. She could not read them. Administrator Kess stood. Lyra Venn, the High Council has reviewed all evidence. We have discussed the case at length. We have considered the tribunal's decision, the falsified evidence, the testimony from Dr. Reeves, and the character of the accused. Lyra held her breath. This was not an easy decision. Callum Reed did violate Selvari law by entering our space without authorization. That fact is undisputed. However, we must also consider the context of that violation, the intent, the outcome. Kess looked at each of her fellow council members, then back at Lyra. The vote must be unanimous to overturn a military tribunal. We have voted. The chamber was so quiet Lyra could hear her own heartbeat. The vote is 9-0 in favor of overturning the tribunal's decision. Callum Reed is hereby acquitted of all charges. He will be released immediately. Lyra felt her knees give out. Helena caught her, held her up. Furthermore, Kess continued, Commander Thane will face full court-martial for falsifying evidence, and we are issuing a formal commendation to Callum Reed for his humanitarian service. He will be granted honorary Selvari citizenship and safe passage through our territory for any future humanitarian missions. She struck her gavel once. This session is concluded. Callum Reed is free. Lyra could not speak, could not move. Helena was saying something, but Lyra could not hear it through the ringing in her ears. He was free, alive, safe. She had done it. They had done it. Where is he? Lyra managed to ask. The aide stepped forward. He is being released from holding now. He will be brought to Docking Bay 3, where his ship is waiting. Lyra ran. She ran through the corridors, civilian status be damned, past surprise crew members, past security checkpoints, down 3 levels to the docking bay. She reached it just as the doors opened and Callum walked through. He was still in his gray civilian clothes. His hands were free of restraints. His face was calm, but his eyes were bright. When he saw her, he smiled, that warm, genuine smile that she had come to know so well. Lyra, he said. She ran to him, crashed into him, nearly knocked him over. He caught her with both arms and held on. You did it, he said into her hair. You saved me. She pulled back just enough to look at him. We saved you, Helena, Sarah, Emma, all of us. You gave up everything. Not everything. I gave up a career. You gave up your life savings. We both sacrificed what we had to. He touched her face gently. You are amazing, you know that? She laughed. It came out half sob. I am unemployed and homeless, and I just destroyed my reputation. I am many things, but amazing is not one of them. You are to me. They stood there in the docking bay, holding on to each other, and for the first time in days, Lyra felt like she could breathe. Then reality set in. You need to finish your mission, she said quietly. Ridgeway still needs you to deliver the medicine physically. The outbreak might return. They need the supplies on site. Callum nodded. I know. The silent passage is repaired. Not perfectly, but enough to make the journey. I can leave within the hour. Lyra felt something twist in her chest. Within the hour. Yes, he looked at her seriously, but I have to go alone. My ship is a one-person vessel. The cargo bay is full. There is literally no room for anyone else. She had known this was coming, had prepared herself for it, but it still hurt. How long will you be gone? 7 days to Ridgeway. I will need to stay for a while. Make sure the outbreak is fully under control. Make sure the colony has what it needs. Then 7 days back. He did the math. 3 weeks, maybe 4. 4 weeks. I will come back, he said firmly. Lyra, I promise you I will come back. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that promise, but she had seen what could happen in 4 weeks. Varathi patrols, equipment failures, 1,000 things that could go wrong. What if something happens to you? Then you will have saved my life for as long as it lasted, and that will have been enough. That is not enough. Then trust me. He took both her hands. I flew through a war zone to help people I did not know. Do you really think I would not fly back to someone I care about? You care about me. Lyra, He stopped, started again. When I was sitting in that holding cell, writing letters to children, waiting to die, you know what I kept thinking about? Not the execution, not fear. I kept thinking about you, about the way you fought for me, about the way you believed me when you had every reason not to, about the way you looked at me like I mattered. He stepped closer. I spent my whole life wishing someone would show up for me. And then you did. You sacrificed everything to save a stranger. How could I not come back to someone like that? Lyra felt tears running down her face. I am not a stranger. No, he agreed softly. You are much more than that. He kissed her then, gentle and careful and full of promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. Wait for me, he said. I know it is asking a lot. I know 4 weeks is a long time. But wait for me, please. I will wait, Lyra said, however long it takes. They walked together to the silent passage. The ship looked better than it had a few days ago. The hull had been patched, the engines repaired, it would fly. At the base of the ramp, they stopped. The council gave you safe passage, Lyra said. You will have a Selvari escort for the first part of your journey. No one will bother you. That is generous of them. They also offered you citizenship and clearance for future missions. You can keep doing this, helping colonies, saving people, and we will protect you while you do it. Callum looked surprised. They really said that? They said you are the kind of person the galaxy needs more of. I am just a cargo pilot. You are so much more than that. She touched his face. You are proof that kindness matters, that showing up matters, that one person can make a difference. He smiled. Then I better not waste it. He turned to board his ship, stopped, turned back. Lyra, there is something I want you to know. Something I should have told you earlier. What? I whispered something too, the first time I saw you, when you came to interrogate me. What did you whisper? He looked at her with those steady brown eyes. I thought she is the person I have been waiting for. I did not know why I thought that, but I knew it was true. Lyra felt her breath catch. So yes, Callum said, I will come back, because you are worth coming back to, because I have been looking for you my whole life, and I am not going to lose you now. He boarded the ship. The ramp closed. The engines powered up, that familiar blue glow spreading from the thrusters. Lyra stood on the docking bay floor and watched the silent passage lift off. Watched it move toward the open bay doors. Watched it slip out into space. She stood there until the ship was just a point of light against the stars. Then it was gone. Helena appeared beside her and, You okay? I do not know, Lyra said honestly. Ask me in 4 weeks. He will come back. How do you know? Because I have been watching people for 15 years. I know who keeps promises and who does not. That man keeps promises. Lyra nodded. She wanted to believe it. Needed to believe it. What do I do now? She asked. Helena smiled. Now you start your new life. The council was impressed with you. They want to offer you a position, Human Selvari Liaison Officer. You would work with me, building bridges between our species, making sure what happened to Ridgeway does not happen again. They want to hire me after I just destroyed my military career. They want to hire you because you destroyed your military career. You proved you care more about people than protocol. That is exactly what we need. Lyra thought about it. A new life, a new purpose. No more military hierarchy. No more taking orders from people like Thane, just helping people, making a difference, like Callum did. I accept, she said. Good. You start tomorrow, but tonight, you rest. You earned it. But Lyra did not rest that night. She went to her new quarters, smaller than her old ones, but comfortable. She stood at the window and looked out at the stars, wondering which one was Callum's destination. And she waited. 3 weeks passed. Lyra threw herself into her new work. She helped negotiate supply agreements between human and Selvari colonies. She set up communication protocols so distress calls would not go unanswered. She worked with Helena to draft new humanitarian passage laws. It was good work, important work. But every day she checked the docking schedules. Every day, the silent passage was not there. 3 weeks became 4. 4 became 5. Helena noticed. He is probably just making sure the colony is stable. Outbreaks can be unpredictable. I know. He will come back. I know. But doubt crept in. What if something had gone wrong? What if the ship had failed? What if he was drifting in space? Alone, the way he had always been? What if he was not coming back? On the 38th day, Lyra sat in her office reviewing trade proposals. The work was mind-numbing. She could barely focus. Her terminal pinged, new docking request. She almost did not look, almost ignored it. But something made her check. Silent passage, requesting docking clearance. ETA, 15 minutes. Lyra was out of her chair before she finished reading. She ran to the docking bay, arrived just as the ship was coming in. The silent passage looked worse than before. New scorch marks, new dents. One of the rear panels was missing entirely. The ship moved like it hurt, engines straining, barely maintaining altitude. But it was there. It was real. It was home. The ship touched down with a heavy thud. The engines powered off. The ramp extended. Callum emerged. His left arm was in a sling. His face was bruised. There was a bandage wrapped around his ribs, visible through his torn flight suit. He moved slowly, carefully, like someone who had been hurt and was still healing. But he was smiling. "Lyra," he said. She ran to him, crashed into him. He caught her with his good arm and held on tight. "You are hurt," she said into his shoulder. "You are hurt, and you should be in medical. And why did you not tell me?" "I am fine, Arthur," he said. "I kept my promise." She pulled back just enough to look at him, tears streaming down her face. "What happened?" "Varathi Patrol, near Ridgeway. They were not happy about the peace initiatives. Tried to stop me." He shrugged with his good shoulder. "I am a very good pilot. You could have died." "But I did not. The medicine got there. Emma is walking now. The outbreak is over. Everyone is healthy." He reached into his pocket with his good hand and pulled out a piece of folded paper. "She sent you something." Lyra took it with shaking hands, unfolded it. It was a child's drawing, two figures standing under stars. One had blue skin and silver eyes. The other had brown hair and a smile. They were holding hands. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, "Thank you for saving him so he could save us." Lyra started crying. She could not help it. The tears came and would not stop. Callum pulled her close with his good arm and just held her while she cried. He did not say anything. He did not try to make it stop. He just held her, steady and warm and real. When she finally caught her breath, she said, "I thought you might not come back. I promised I would. Promises get broken. Not mine." He looked down at her. "Never mine." She kissed him again, longer this time, deeper, like she was trying to prove to herself that he was really here, really alive, really hers. When they finally pulled apart, he was still smiling. "I have more colonies on my list. Years of work. And now that people know what I do, more colonies are asking for help." "Then we have years together," Lyra Boyer said. "We?" "The Council approved joint humanitarian missions, human and Kelvari crews working together, building trust." She took his hand. "I requested assignment as your liaison officer. Your ship only has room for one person." "I know, so I requisitioned a ship of my own." She pointed to the far side of the docking bay where a small Kelvari vessel sat, sleek and new, with fresh paint. On the voice, i.e. in silver letters, "The Witness." Callum stared at it, then at her. Then he started laughing, the sound bright and full of joy. "You named your ship The Witness?" "I witnessed you fight alone," Lyra said. "Now I want to witness what you do next. Not instead of you, not for you, just beside you, if you will let me." He pulled her close again, careful of his injured arm. "I would like that very much." They stood there in the docking bay, two people who had found each other in the space between war and peace, holding on to something that felt like home. "We leave in 3 days," Callum said. "Once medical clears me. There is a colony in the outer reaches. Water filtration crisis. They need help." "Then we go in 3 days," Lyra said. "Together." Together, she looked up at the two ships. The silent passage, battered and old and still flying. The Witness, new and ready and waiting. Side by side, different but equal, independent but connected. like the two of them. Callum, she said. Yes. Thank you for coming back. He kissed the top of her head. Thank you for being worth coming back to. 6 months later, Lyra Venn and Callum Reed delivered medical supplies to their seventh colony together, then their eighth, then their 12th. They flew through dangerous space in safe harbors, through hostile territory and friendly ports. They saved hundreds of lives. They built bridges between species that had forgotten how to talk to each other. And every night when they stopped at some station or outpost or quiet place between the stars, they would sit together and look at the drawings the children sent them. Dozens of them now, hundreds, all the same. Two figures, different species, holding hands under stars. Thank you for showing up, the picture said. Thank you for caring. Thank you for not giving up on us. Lyra kept every single one. She had witnessed a human fight alone and whispered that she wanted him to be hers. She had not known then what that really meant, had not understood that the truest way to make someone yours is not to possess them or change them or hold them back. It is to fly beside them, to witness their fight, to show up when it matters, to choose them every day in every way that counts. She chose Callum. He chose her. And together they chose to keep showing up for the people who needed someone to care. Because someone always has to show up, and they always would. In the years that followed, the Human Calvary Initiative would grow into something larger than anyone imagined. Peace talks would succeed, borders would open, two species that had fought for generations would learn to build instead of destroy. But it started with two ships flying side by side through the dark. It started with a woman who believed in truth and a man who believed in showing up. It started with a promise kept. The silent passage and the witness became legends. Stories told to children on colonies across the galaxy. About the pilot who flew through hell to save strangers, and the officer who gave up everything to save him. About two people who proved that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is care when everyone else has given up. About witnessing, about fighting, about promises, about love that shows up when it matters most, that flies through fire and survives, that waits and returns and never, ever gives up. About choosing each other, every day, against all odds, until the stars themselves went dark. They flew together for 37 years. They saved 14,000 lives across 143 colonies. They built a network of humanitarian pilots that spanned 3 sectors. They proved that showing up matters. And when their ships finally stopped flying, when age caught up with them and they retired to a small home on Ridgeway Station where it all began, they sat together and watched the stars and remembered every single person they had helped. Emma came to visit them often. She was 37 now, with children of her own, healthy and strong and alive, because one man had cared enough to fly through a war zone. She brought her children to meet Lyra and Callum, brought them to hear the story of how showing up can change everything. And every time she left, she would hug them both and whisper the same thing. Thank you for caring. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for proving that one person can make a difference. Lyra would smile and say, we just showed up when it mattered. And Callum would add, that is all anyone ever has to do. They lived to be 93 and 90, respectively. They died within a month of each other, still holding hands, still looking at the stars, still believing that kindness was the hardest kind of courage. Their ships were preserved in a museum on Ridgeway Station. Children would visit and touch the hulls and wonder what it must have been like to fly through hell to save people you did not know. And above the display, in letters of silver and gold, were the words that became their legacy. Someone always has to show up. They did. So can you.